7 o'clock, I'm going to call to order the Monday, January 12th, 2026 meeting of the Concord City Council. Before we get started, I'll just mention that for anyone who needs assistance hearing, there are hearing devices, supplemental hearing devices in the back of the room at the Concord TV booth where Michael is waving his hand. You can touch base with Michael and receive one of these. They are headphones, and they'll augment the sound for you. Now, will you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, Councilor Brown.
Here.
Mayor Champlin.
Present.
Councilor Davey.
Here.
Councilor Fennessy.
Present.
Councilor Foote.
Excused.
Councilor Grady Sexton.
Here.
Councilor Horn.
Here.
Councilor Caleb.
Here.
Councilor Keach.
Here.
Councilor Kretovic.
Present.
Councilor Kurtz.
Present.
Councilor Schlosser.
Here.
Councilor Schultz.
Here.
Councilor Sekou.
Here.
And Councilor Todd.
Here. Very good, thank you. I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes of our December 8th, 2025 City Council meeting.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Councilor Kretovic.
Thanks, Your Honor. I just want to note for the record that on pages 16 and 17 that it accurately reflects discussion regarding tabling the compensation study. However, this item involves compensation for all departments, and I believe it was appropriate to acknowledge that if there was a potential indirect conflict of interest. I'm not suggesting any impropriety. There was a lot going on that evening. I think it was really just an oversight. My concern simply is that when matters of compensation come before us, we should be explicit about disclosures or the absence thereof to ensure consistency and public confidence in the process.
Thank you, Councilor.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other discussion? All those in favor of adopting the minutes as proposed, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. It's now my great pleasure to ask Jim Milliken, the president, I believe, or chairman of the board of the Concord Historical Society, to come forward with a presentation.
Thank you. Can I get some help?
Yes.
Anybody who doesn't have one, please take one. Here. Oh, here we go. Now, wait 1 second.
Certainly.
I think I have enough, but if you already have one, bypass for the moment, okay?
Thank you. Thank you, Roger. Thank you.
You need one? I have two already.
This happens to be the deluxe edition, and the one you have is a little different, and I'll explain in 1 second. Oh, I have a couple left over.
Oh, I need one, and then you will have a couple now.
You better take one while you can,
Yeah, for Councilor Foote.
because
Oh, yes,
these are
one for
the end.
Councilor Foote.
And there's a big story that goes behind that, but I'm not going to give you the big story. I've got some remarks, and then I'll be very happy to answer some questions. But I'll do my remarks first because they really explain what's going on. They'll only take a minute. Mayors, members of the City Council, and members of the public, thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. Cross Currents of Change is not simply a book about the past. It's a record of how leadership, industry, service, and civic choices shaped Concord through the 20th century. And by extension, how those decisions continue to shape the city we govern today. History matters in leadership because it provides context. It reminds us that today's challenges are really new, that progress is rarely linear, and that every major decision carries long-term consequences, which you well know. The consequences intended or otherwise. When leaders understand how a community arrived where it is, they are better equipped to decide where it should go. This publication reflects that principle. 18 local authors, many of them civic leaders, contributed chapters that examine Concord's military service, business and industry, neighborhoods, schools, institutions, and civic life. Together they tell a story not of isolated moments, but of interconnected choices and shared responsibilities across the generations. We are especially proud that both the mayor and Councilor Kretovic contributed chapters. And I encourage you to look at the back. There's quite a list back there, and there's more to this book than you can imagine. The fact that we had people involved with government underscores that history is not separate from governance. It is part of it. Their work, alongside that of the other contributors, reinforced the idea that leadership benefits when it is informed by an honest understanding of the past. Our hope is that Cross Currents of Change serves not only as a historical record, but as a reference point, a reminder that thoughtful, informed decisions have always been central to Concord's resilience and success. These are the final paperback book, by the way, that we have in our collection. So you might consider these priceless or free. Even so, we've reduced this value to about $5 for the last several years, well within the gift value under your council rules. So you can keep it, I think. Thank you for your time, your service, and for recognizing the value of our city's history. So you may use this as a guide for your leadership today. That's all I had to say, but I'd love to answer questions, and I'll just point out, this book, there were 4 people that really made it happen, besides the board of directors and previous board members, all listed in here, and then all the contributors in the back. But the primary person was John Milk, and John was the person, but I'm looking for the right, worked at the State House for a while, but had a very, very important career as a reporter for different newspapers. And I can remember asking John, would you be willing to chair this program? And he said yes. He was about to retire. And he worked his butt on making this happen. And it was very shortly thereafter that he suddenly passed away. And that was very, very sad. A second person who was our project manager was Dick Osborne. And Dick was the president of WKXL. And there were 2 other people who put it together, made it happen along with all our contributors. And one of them was Becky Kinnan. Does anybody know Becky Kinnan? Well, she was the designer, and she's sitting right behind me. And that's great for Becky. And of course, we had to have an art director, art designer, and guess who? Jeff Forrester. And you see him in the Concord Monitor every day, and he's here too. The one thing I would add was that, you know, you had a 2020 program back when Bill Marino was your mayor. And out of that work that they did with the 2020, Doug Black, Dr. Black, some of you may remember, very, very good friend of mine, came to me and said, we've been discussing about a Concord Historical Society. Would you consider making that happen? Really? He said, absolutely. And it was shortly thereafter, with the help of attorney Susan Leahy, who some of you, we had bylaws and a fantastic committee of board of directors, and they're listed also in the book. And then it wasn't, but we were about a year into it, and we had Life Its History, we had Booton History. Those are histories of Concord. Booton was the early one, Life It was the next one. That we as a society said, wait a minute, it's our responsibility to do the 20th century. And we got together and said, absolutely, we're going to make it happen, and we started the process. But there were a couple important things. One of them was that this book was going to be entirely a Concord project. It was, do you remember Town and Country Printing, a reprograph? They did the printing. Do you remember Capital Offset up on North Main Street? That they contributed a great deal to the final printing. And then this book, by the way, literally came off the presses as we were having our first night putting it together, and it was in town. It was at the Concord Hotel and in that area where we did, and the books literally came down the street on a cart. It was a fun night. But every person that contributed was from Concord. The book was produced by people in Concord, and it was supposed to be a Concord item forever. And the other thing that was most important that John Mill insisted on is that it should be readable. And the whole point of this book was that you could take this home and put it on your table in the living room and pick it up at any time and have fun reading it. Because if you look at the chapters, there's a theme in every chapter. And it's exciting when you start to read it and see how the different people involved in each one of those chapters played a role in who we are today. And by the way, we're lucky folks who live here in Concord and have this kind of a history behind us. And I congratulate you all for being elected to continue to be our governors. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Milligan?
I have one.
Councilor Keats.
First of all, thank you very much for all this work. It's outstanding. And you talk a lot about your history of Concord and also, but I don't know the history of you. Where did you come from? And
What is your history?
That was a good question.
He's on witness protection.
I'll make it very quick. I grew up in Concord. And I had the very, very good fortune as a young man to go through all the public schools, St. Paul's Church, University of New Hampshire, and at one point I was a Concord policeman, the best job I ever had. And at another point I was the president of the Chamber of Commerce and then later the director or vice versa.
thank you.
So I grew up here and I couldn't be happier, and to be so fortunate. I am a very, very fortunate person to have had some kind of a leadership role in helping to continue to make Concord what a wonderful place it really
Well,
is.
you pay it forward. Thank you very much. It's
You're
great.
very, very, thank you for asking.
Councilor Caleb.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much. This is incredibly meaningful. I'm curious, how long was the process for, the research, the writing, this is,
I'd
just
turn
looks like a
around
huge-
and ask Becky, but I would say.
It seemed like forever
2
to
to 3
me.
years. And, oh, by the way, the table of contents in the back is
The glossary,
23, pardon me?
the glossary.
Glossary, 23 pages. When John put it together, he said, we're going to have that thing that'll sit on the table, and people can pick it up, but it's going to be accurate. And he checked and checked and checked. So when you go to the glossary, 23 pages of glossary, you can depend on that to be a legitimate history book. That's extremely, extremely important for this book and for us when we put it together.
Any other? Councilor Todd.
Thank you, Your Honor. I don't really have a question, but I do have a comment, and that is that you had just mentioned that you feel very lucky and fortunate to have lived in Concord. Well, I will return that. I'll say that we are very fortunate to be here in Concord, working in many capacities that you had, all the way back to walking the beat in Pennacook, I believe.
As a matter of fact.
Yes,
yeah.
that's why we're in such great shape now. You see, you're going for that. And also, I would all the names that you mentioned, I feel very fortunate personally to have been able to know and work with all those people, and as well as working with you, which was a delight. And I really want to thank you. Your timing is impeccable as we start to undertake the master plan process to bring this out to our attention. And I really do want to just thank you for reminding us to continue to learn from our history. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Any other? All right. Thank you very much. Before we move forward, I would just like to acknowledge, I believe that we have the St. Paul School Political Magazine here. Is this true, or well, would you stand, please, and be recognized? Welcome. We're happy to have you here. We hope you find it an enjoyable, interesting evening. And I will mention to you that St. Paul's School is spread throughout the pages of the book that Mr. Milligan just presented to us. A great connection and great history and connection between the school and the city over the years, over the centuries, really. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This moves us to the consent calendar. I would just mention that item 20 was pulled from consent. Do I have a motion to adopt the consent calendar?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Ayes have it. Consent calendar is adopted. That now moves us to the public hearing phase of our meeting. Madam City Clerk, item 27A.
It's an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, Title IV, Zoning Code, Chapter 28, Zoning Ordinance, Zoning Districts and Allowable Uses, amending Section 28-2-3, the zoning map, 28-2-3B1, the zoning overlay district maps.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager.
Your Honor, members of the council, the City of Concord participates in the National Flood Insurance Program through the Federal Emergency Management Agency. By participating here, the city agrees to adopt floodplain management regulations to regulate development in the most sensitive flood-prone areas in the city, also known as flood hazard district. In return for adopting the floodplain management regulations, residents of the city are able to purchase flood insurance through the program at a lower rate than private insurance can provide. In order for the city to remain compliant or in good standing, the city must adopt FEMA's new flood insurance maps and flood insurance rate maps, effective date of January 23, 2026. So the recommendation, and this has gone through Planning Board, has reviewed and approved. The recommendation is that you approve these.
Thank you. Any questions for the City Manager? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to testify on item 27A? All right, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing on item 27A. Madam City Clerk, item 27B.
It's a resolution appropriating the sum of $100,000 in the water main replacement project for the construction of water distribution infrastructure improvements as part of the New Hampshire Department of Transportation's bridge rehabilitation project, and authorizing the issuance of water general obligation bonds and notes in the sum of $100,000.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager.
Now, members of the council, you may recall in September of this past year, the City Council appropriated $300,000 for improvements to the water main infrastructure near the north and south parapet walls of the East Side Drive Bridge. On October 23, New Hampshire DOT received bids for construction and repair of the rehabilitation project, and including improvements of the city's water main infrastructure. The bids received are more than 30% higher than the engineer's cost estimates for the project. The state sent us a letter, and the DOT has indicated that it is prepared to recommend the award of the contract to the low bidder, including the city's water infrastructure improvements, if the city approves of this action. They've asked that a supplemental appropriation is needed, as currently the appropriated budget for this work is insufficient to fund the work at bid as proposed for award. The recommendation is the City Council appropriate an additional $100,000 to complete this project. And as you can see from the resolution, these dollars come from this reserve fund. If you go to the resolution report, you can see that it is general obligation bonds and notes from the Water Capital Project Fund. So we just simply bond additional $100,000 to make this project happen if we want to go along with the state's project.
Thank you. Any questions for the city manager? All right, seeing none, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to testify on this item? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Madam City Clerk, item 27C.
It is a resolution appropriating the sum of $18,500 to assist the library's mission in providing a variety of equitable services to patrons at the Concord Public Library and accepting the sum of $18,500 in donations from the Concord Public Library Foundation for this purpose.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager.
Members of the council, this check covers the period from January 1st of this year to December 31st of this year. And the Concord Public Library Foundation has been very generous in the donations to the Concord Public Library. I recommend you accept the dollars.
Thank you. Any questions for the city manager? All right, seeing none, I'll open this item to a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to testify on item 27C? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Madam City Clerk, item 27D.
It is a resolution clarifying and revising capital reserve account purposes, closing capital reserve accounts, and transferring remaining balances.
Mr. City Man, thank you. Mr. City Manager.
Members of the council, the resolution they have in front of you is to clarify, revise the purpose of the use of the city's capital reserve accounts, closing the reserve accounts that are no longer used, and transferring the balances to certain reserve accounts. These accounts have been in use to help the City Council manage expenditures for operating budgets and capital budgets, which in turn helps manage the annual tax rate. As part of this process, New Hampshire RSA 34:11 change of purpose. After the purpose for which the Capital Reserve Fund is established has been determined, no change shall be made in the purpose for which said fund may be expended unless and until such change has been authorized by a favorable vote of 3/4 of all the members of City Council, and such change shall only be made after public hearing and held pursuant to a notice. The attached resolution and the subsequent public hearing would satisfy the provisions of 34:11 if approved by the City Council.
Thank you. Any questions for the city manager? Councilor Brown.
Yes, thank you. I understand that the Department of Justice has a Trustees of Trust Funds handbook. Do the trustees of the trust funds who oversee these capital reserve accounts, do they receive training from that handbook?
I don't know. I'll have to ask the folks.
It's not provided.
No.
Follow
up? What training do the trustees of trust funds receive for that? I understand that if funds are withdrawn and they are not for the purpose of the account, they're guilty of a misdemeanor. Do we provide any training to the trustees before they serve in this capacity?
No, we do not.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for the city manager? All right. I'll open this item to a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to testify? Please come up. Welcome.
Good evening, mayors, members of the city council, city manager, city clerk. I'm Roy Schweiker, and I know I'm not allowed to ask any questions, so I'm only going to make statements. I see there's an item in this form, MS9 or whatever it is, for a Nelson Legacy Fund 62NL. And there apparently is no principal left. There is $292.38 in interest this year. There is no income based on that interest. I mean, I would have assumed that instead of having a separate passport to keep under your pillow for each of these funds, that maybe they were commingled funds, so all of the funds would receive some rate of interest. So I'm kind of curious as to why this particular fund is not generating any interest, and if we're not using it, why isn't it being eliminated? But, so that's a statement, that's not a question. Okay, the second thing is that a former member of the city council, whom I understand is a friend of the mayor, who's moved to a different community, said in that community, the reports of the trust funds are published in the report. And I noticed that the stuff for these trust funds is not in the city budget. And I wonder, you know, that's kind of curious. I think that, you know, this stuff is not in the city budget where everybody can see it. You know, so once you kind of feel strange about that. The third thing is that the standards of the GFOA for municipal auditing say that the auditor must audit every fund individually and not just the city as a whole. And I'm kind of curious as to whether that's actually being done. That's a statement, that's not a question. And lastly, I sent around a letter, which many of you must have seen, or at least had the chance to see, about concerns that various people in this city have about the process of managing trust funds. One member of the public who was not a city councilor actually went to the Attorney General's office, and Jeff Streschlin, whatever his name is, said that maybe we need to get the police involved in this issue. And there are other people who seem to think that city officials have stolen $100,000, which can't be accounted for. And my feeling is that what we need to do, and that's what this letter said, is we need to get the Department of Revenue Administration for free to examine the process that the city has for managing trust funds and see if it's correct. Because we had a former city treasurer who presumably may have been involved in this process who went to Nashua, and apparently the process down there was found to be not correct. So I think it's questionable whether things are here. And once again, I don't understand why the city is not, doing this thing, which would be free, to make sure the process is correct, because one of two things would happen. Number one, if the DRA finds the process is correct, then that would reassure the members of the city, and they wouldn't be worried about sending people to jail or which person in the city is stealing $100,000. On the other hand, if the DRA determines that the process has deficiencies, then we could correct them instead of getting the police involved in this. I don't think anyone is a crook. I think that we need to explain to people that this is being done correctly, and I think nobody hired by the city is going to be trusted, whereas DRA is a neutral party that is more knowledgeable than anybody, and that's why I think they're the ones that should be asked to examine the city's process and see if it's correct. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Schweiker. Councilor Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Really, my question is for you. But first, I want to say I have I have no doubt that our finance staff, especially Mr. LeBrun and his staff, are doing everything that they're supposed to be doing. Having, in addition to that, I'm wondering if we could suspend the rules in some fashion to answer some of these questions rather than leave them hanging out there, given the serious nature of the questions. I have such respect for Mr. Schweiker and where he's coming from that I feel like the heft of those questions should be addressed.
Councilor, we can deal with those during the discussion phase.
Nope. Thank you.
Welcome. Councilor Kretovic.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Schweiker, thank you so much for your testimony. I always appreciate you being here. Who was the source of the questionable $100,000 nefarious activity? Do you know, if you know?
Well, the original source of this was a comment made by the deputy city manager that there was $100,000, they didn't know where it went. And some people have interpreted that to mean it was stolen. That's not how I interpreted it. I'm merely reporting that there are people in the city that are not happy about that statement, and it would be nice to know that, in fact, we are doing things properly and, people in the city aren't walking off with it.
May I ask a
Follow-up?
follow-up?
Yeah.
Was this in the conversation in regards to the purchase of furniture and accessories and every pen in the budget for the recreation department?
I am not sure whether it had to do with pens or what it was, and I think I understand where you're coming from, and I think I agree with you, but I am not this person. I'm merely reporting that they interpreted things perhaps differently than some other people, and that's why it would be nice if we had DRA give everybody a clean bill of health so these questions don't linger. It's not healthy for the city, for residents to think that the city government is crooked.
Agreed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Schweiker? Councilor Teach.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, Mr. Sweater, I just want to be clear. So you're perpetuating a rumor, or you actually know this is a issue? That's the problem I'm wrestling with.
Okay. I know that somebody who seemed to think that the $100,000 was missing asked me if I thought it was missing. I said I did not, but apparently this person would not have asked if he didn't have a different opinion.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Schweiker. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Schweiker. Always good to see you. Would anyone else like to testify on this item? Yes. Welcome.
Good evening, councilors. Mayor, my name is Jason Gerhard, and I would like to discuss the issue I see is that there's a lot of questions as to money, where it went, and this current item seems to just murky the waters even more. And I actually did see a clip about the $200,000 from the Recreation Reserve Fund and didn't know if it was used for pencils or pens. And I was in the state government for one term, and I just find that kind of absurd, especially right now with all of the widespread fraud going on throughout the country. People don't really trust government accounting, and I can't blame them. I don't, and I was in the government, So what I wanted to bring up was that it's pretty explicit, RSA 3410, that reserve funds shall only be made for or in connection with the purposes for which said fund was established. And obviously, as it was stated before, it's a misdemeanor if they're using funds for things that weren't supposed to be. I just really would recommend that kind of just put everything on ice. And the DRA, I wouldn't trust a government agency to oversee another government agency. That just seems to be a recipe for more disaster, and another government agency to be created to see those government agencies that didn't do their job in the first place. Recently, I've discovered that the county grand jury is actually the mechanism for investigating government. We only think of it as in its accusatory role. The prosecutor brings forth an accusation, says, hey, should we indict this guy? But it turns out other states, for instance, Florida, they use its investigatory capabilities to its full extent. And I just want to read from the handbook for the grand jurors in Florida. It's really interesting. The grand jury, in addition to the duty of formally indicting those charged with crime, has the further important duty of making investigations on its own initiative, which it will report as a presentment. This duty permits investigation of how public officials are conducting their offices and discharging their public trusts. The grand jury may investigate as to whether public institutions are being properly administered and conducted. It has the power to inspect those institutions and, if necessary, may call before the grand jury those in charge of the operations of public institutions, as well as any other person who has information and can testify concerning them. Last sentence. If the grand jury finds that an unlawful, improper, or corrupt condition exists, it may recommend a remedy. And our grand jury in Merrimack County, it meets every month, but the new grand jury is coming in on Wednesday. And in September, for the previous grand jury, I gave them information about this duty and obligation they have to investigate government. Because no offense, but we need somebody to oversee government that's not in government. And these people serve for 120 days, then they're out. They have no incentive to play party politics. So anyway, I'm going to go Wednesday, and I'm going to bring this issue up to them with some other ones. But I don't want to think that anybody's doing anything untoward, but I mean, there's a lot of money that's kind of up in the air, and I don't want to call it off right now, but I just, yeah. So anyway, that's what I kind of wanted to come here with. And just one other thing, the City of Concord Trustees of Trust Fund meeting back in November, the meeting started at 2 o'clock and ended at 2:09. That just, I don't know, this whole thing just seems kind of sketch from somebody kind of looking from the outside. So I would just highly, highly recommend that you guys just put this on ice for the time being, because I don't see the rush to mix up the pot more. Just kind of let everything settle, find out what happened, because obviously something's wrong. I mean, let's be honest. So let's just kind of figure out what's wrong. Nobody's looking, because getting back to the grand jury angle, it's not always about indictments. The grand jury can recommend a correction, or they can simply just censure somebody, basically. Like, hey, Jim, you really aren't good at the job. You know? And I think that's better than, because it's not about locking people up. It's about correcting a problem. You have people getting kicked out of their homes for not paying taxes. There are real consequences towards money not being used for what it's supposed to be used for. So that's just kind of what I want to say tonight. So, hey. And, yeah.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Gerhard? Councilor Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say hi, since you pointed at me a couple of times. We did work on some criminal justice legislation together at the State House. We probably disagree on a lot of other things.
A lot of things.
But anyway, thanks for remembering me. Good to see you.
Good seeing you. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Gerhard? Councilor Brown.
Yes, if someone is interested in following up with you about the grand jury, what should they do?
Well, I'm going to talk to them 7:30 at the Superior Courthouse on Wednesday, and they're very receptive to it's just regular people. It's 23 people that were told, hey, you're getting $20 a day, and you got to hear these cases. But if you look back historically, especially in the mid-1930s, 1935, the runaway grand jury under future Governor Dewey, they were upset about some racketeering and major prostitution rings going on. And let's back up. In 1992, there's a Supreme Court case, Williams, and Scalia said in there, the grand jury can investigate something even if they just want to make sure a crime isn't being committed. They don't even need to think something. So it's very broad. But anyway, yes, going to give them information, and hopefully we can kind of get to the bottom of this and some other things. Because in other areas of the country, they investigate everything from homelessness to, it's not just about, I think the timer, so.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gerhard.
All right, thank you guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to testify? All right, seeing none, I'll declare the public hearing on item 27D closed. Madam City Clerk, item 27E.
It is a resolution appropriating the sum of $2,050,000 as a transfer to reserves and authorizing the use of $2,050,000 from the fiscal year 2025 general fund assigned fund balance for this purpose.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager.
Your Honor, members of the council, you have a 82-page report, which I won't go through the entire thing, but let's hit some of the highlights. The fiscal year 25 general fund total expenses were under the amended budget by $2,139,300, and some items exceeded budget and some were under budget, but overall, that's how much we were under budget. The basis for the attached resolution, which you have, is to transfer funds to reserve for future use to support needed initiatives that were either not funded in the fiscal year 26 operating budget or issues that arose after the fiscal year 26 budget was adopted. So the recommendations are, and this one from Fiscal Policy Advisory Committee, is to place $1.5 million into the paving program, into Highway Reserve, because that's one of your major initiatives. Put $50,000 into Technology, Infrastructure, and Equipment Reserve. Put $150,000 into the Equipment Reserve. So the Equipment Reserve would be obviously for fire equipment or general services equipment. Put $250,000 into the Recreation Reserve. Put $100,000 into the Economic Development Reserve. That totals $2,050,000. And then allocate to the budgetary use of fund balance $655,000 for total assigned fund balance $2,705,000. The attached resolution also makes recommendation for supplemental appropriation amount of $46,000, $16,000 for new replacement of furniture and fixtures. So as you recall, we don't put a lot of furniture or much of any furniture in any of the individual budgets. We stripped all that out during one of the last recessions. So when you've had dollars, that's how you've been able to, and I'll talk about that in a second. $20,000 for overtime for the prosecutor's office to complete software implementation, and $10,000 for education and training. As you recall, during the sessions, you've stripped out a lot of the training funds, so you've been able to put them back a little bit, but not all the way back, so you carry this one fund in case something comes up. So the new replacement furniture and fixtures includes furniture for the accounting office, the human services office, the welfare department, and overtime for the prosecutor's office to scan legacy files into the new prosecutors by Crapnell software. The request also includes funding for the educational-related opportunities that may arise through the fiscal year that were not included in the fiscal year 26 budget. In addition to this, you have the results of your enterprise and special revenue funds. So, and you can see going through there, and I'll just touch on the highlights or I'll touch on each one, but you can see you have a column for the amended budget, the actual budget, and the variance. So the variance is what the difference is between what you approved and the end result. So you can see the parking fund did $653,900 better than budget. The airport did $52,600 better than budget. Housing revolving loan fund did $81,500 better than budget. The golf fund did $53,900 better than budget. The arena, on the other hand, $51,100 less, and we've talked about those issues in the past. We'll talk about them again during the budget and how to address those. The solid waste fund did $542,900 better than budget. The OCTIF, the North End Opportunity Quarter Tax Increment Financing District, did $99,000 better than budget. The Sears Block Tax Increment Financing District did $1,100 less than budget, but essentially, you know, just $1,000 off, so it's very close to budget. The Hennecook Village Tax Increment Financing District did $20,700 better than budget. The Water Fund did $323,700 better than budget. The Wastewater Fund did $8,300 better than budget. So if you look at those, roughly, you on your enterprise funds and special revenue funds, you did $1,784,300 better than budget. In any private sector, public sector, that is a tremendous results, tremendous financial results. And I recommend you thank all the departments who did that, because that's just outstanding in terms of the financial management of their budgets. And with that, I'll be glad to take any questions.
Any questions for the city manager? Councilor Brown.
Yes, thank you. I'm looking at the resolution, which is recommending $250,000 to the Recreation Reserve and $100,000 to Economic Development. This time last year, we approved $400,000 to go to the Recreation Reserve, and the purpose of the Recreation Reserve is for future projects related to the citywide community center. Now, during budget, we approved a bond for $130,000 for that same CIP 443. So I'm wondering, why do we keep putting money into the Recreation Reserve if we're not using it for the purpose that it was intended? And I had asked in September where the $200,000 that was withdrawn from the Recreation Reserve went, and that was when the finance director, Mr. LeBrun, said he couldn't account for it. And $100,000 has been withdrawn, and I had asked in our December meeting where that money went. So if it's not going towards the purpose that it was originally created, where is it going? And the economic development, you know, the purpose, the actual purpose is investment in an office park, industrial park, and a civic center, and yet during budget, we pulled out $150,000 for events, and that is not the purpose for capital reserve funds or even this reserve. So I don't understand why we're putting more money into accounts that we cannot track where it's going.
I could ask Mr. LeBrun and Mr. Gafordi to come forward. When I say we, the we is you. And so it's all up to you. Every time you've taken any funds and put them into the reserve accounts or taken any funds out, it's been a vote, a public vote by the City Council, including you, Councilor Brown. So I think I answered most of your question, because it's you who actually did all this. So a lot of the discussions about concerns about how funds came in and came out and what disappeared and didn't, is really related to the city
We
council.
did not approve
So I would-
100,000.
I've
Out of order,
I've got you
Counsel.
out of order. So I would ask Mr. LeBrun and Mr. Conforti to try to answer some of this.
To start with the $200,000 from last year, that was part of the original budget for the fiscal year 2025 budget. Those dollars were transferred from the Recreation Reserve to the Recreation Department revenue line, transfer in from trust line. It's fully accounted for. So, Counselor, if you're saying it's not accounted for, it is accounted for. When I said that I couldn't tell you if we bought pens or pencils with it, it's because it went into the general revenue line of the Recreation Department. The $100,000 that you're talking about, that was reduced from $200,000 last year to $100,000 in fiscal year 2026. Those funds went from the Recreation Reserve to the general revenue line for the Recreation Department. That is fully accounted for. So for you to make that comment is absolutely inaccurate.
May I ask Mr. LeBrun a question? Please. Mr. LeBrun, when we were working on the budget, all of us except for the Councilor Caleb and Councilor Davey, who were not on the city council at that time, when we were working as the finance committee, did you hand out to us a budget detail document?
Actually, the budget detail document went out to all the councilors when the budget was delivered on,
Thank you.
I believe, May 9th.
So that was May 9th, thank you. And on page 42 of that document, was there a notation that $100,000 had been transferred from the Recreation Reserve into the revenue line of the Parks and Rec Department?
It was a budget item. So
Budget item.
the city budgeted and the city council approved that revenue budget of $100,000 from the Recreation Reserve to the trust fund line.
Thank you. And so that is what we voted on when we approved the fiscal 26 budget, correct?
The city council adopted the fiscal 26 budget on June 5th, 2025.
And does my
Yes, sir.
memory serve that that was unanimously adopted?
I believe it was.
Would that generally mean that everyone who was at the table at the time voted for it?
That's what I would.
Thank you, Mr. LeBrun.
Follow up, Your Honor?
Surely.
Thank you. I would just like to remind everyone that these funds were for a specific purpose. The Recreation Reserve, they are not meant to go into the general fund to pay down the debt. They go into a savings account for a very specific purpose. I attended the Trustees of Trust Funds meeting in October, and I asked them if they verify any of the withdrawals as they are supposed to do, and they said they have never done that. Now, Mr. LeBrun just sent an email to all of the councilors when I asked, where are the minutes for when we approved the most recent withdrawals that happened between July 1st and October 31st? I said I would like to see the minutes for when we approved it and when the trustees approved it, because the process is that it happens at the council first, and then the trustees verify that the withdrawals match the purpose of the fund. And he said they will approve it in January. That is after the withdrawals were done. It's closing the barn door after the horse has left. The withdrawals have already happened. They did not approve it. We are not following the correct procedure.
Mr. LeBrun, may I ask a question, Mr. LeBrun and Mr. Conforti?
Certainly.
Have funds been, dollars been transferred out of these capital reserve funds appropriately?
They have. They've been moved to the general fund or to the capital funds that the city council approved.
Mr. Conforti, as city solicitor, is that consistent with your understanding?
That is consistent with my understanding. Based on my review, I've worked with Mr. LeBrun to review this and worked with the trustees of the trust fund so that they understood their statutory obligations. And obviously the previous item before you is to make sure that there is absolute transparency and clarity going forward with the resolutions that the council has adopted.
Are you confident, Mr. Conforti, that we are in compliance with state statute?
Based on what I have reviewed, we are in compliance. And again, I think that there are some clarity issues that can be addressed in the previous item with regard to the resolutions to make sure that it is consistent with the council's wishes. And that is why that item has been brought forward after working with Mr. LeBrun and his staff. But with regard to how the activities have taken place, I don't see anything that would cause me concern.
Thank you very much. Councilor Brown, sorry. Councilor
Yes,
Brown.
I just would like to ask Mr. Conforti, did the trustees receive training on their responsibilities for verifying, and when did that training happen? How frequently does has that training happened?
So, Council Brown, I'm not going to speak to any attorney-client privileged communications that I had with the trustees, and I am not familiar with what training they may or may not have had, either directly through the city or the Attorney General's office.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. I'll now open the public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to testify on item, I believe we're on item 27E? Mr. Schweiker. Welcome back.
Hello again, everybody. And, once again, I have a little bit of a concern about the way this is being done. A couple of months ago, there was an item that there was a labor contract that had run over, and money was needed for it, and it was said, well, we have to raise taxes to cover that. We can't take it out of any reserve funds. But now it seems like we have enough reserve funds that we're spending furniture with it. And so I wonder if maybe we want to revisit that instead of raising the taxes to cover that, pay increase, that we buy less furniture and use the reserve funds that we're going to use for the furniture. Because personally, I think that, our public safety people, if they negotiate a contract, they deserve to get it. And that's more important than keeping the furniture another year. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Schweiker? All right, thank you, Mr. Schweiker. Is there anyone else who would like to testify on this item? I'll declare the public hearing closed. Madam City Clerk, item 27F.
It is a resolution appropriating the sum of $46,000 in the general fund for furniture and fixtures, overtime, education, and training, and authorizing the use of $46,000 in reserve funds for this purpose.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager.
Your Honor, I covered this in the last presentation. This is all part of the same thing.
All right, thank you. Any questions for the City Manager? All right, would anyone like to testify on this item? Opening the public hearing. Seeing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Madam City Clerk, this moves us to the public hearing action phase of our meeting. Madam City Clerk, item 28.
It is an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, Title IV Zoning Code, Chapter 28 Zoning Ordinance, zoning districts and allowable uses by amending the zoning map and the zoning overlay district maps.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
Move approval. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Madam City Clerk, item 29.
It is a resolution appropriating the sum of $100,000 in the water main replacement project for the construction of water distribution infrastructure improvements as part of the New Hampshire Department of Transportation's Bridge Rehabilitation Project, and authorizing the issuance of water general obligation bonds and notes in the sum of $100,000 for this purpose.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Approval moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it, and the motion passes by the required two-thirds majority. Madam City Clerk, item number 30.
It is a resolution appropriating the sum of $18,500 to assist the library's mission in providing a variety of equitable services to patrons at the Concord Public Library and accepting the sum of $18,500 in donations from the Concord Public Library Foundation for this purpose.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
Move approval. Second.
Approval moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The motion passes by the required two-thirds majority. Madam City Clerk, item 31.
It is a resolution clarifying, revising capital reserve account purposes, closing capital reserve accounts, and transferring remaining balances.
Thank you.
Move approval.
Moved and seconded.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Schultz?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I feel like the questions that were pointed out, at least some of the main questions that Mr. Schweiker had, were addressed. I will be supporting this in the next couple of items because I have complete trust in Mr. LeBrun and his staff, and I feel like I feel satisfied if there's any aspect that I'm missing of Mr. Schweiker's questions that we could address, though, one didn't get addressed, I encourage my fellow counselors to raise that, because I do think it's good when citizens ask these questions, but I feel pretty satisfied with the work that our staff has done.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Caleb, did I see your hand up?
No, but I actually do have a question.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I want to echo what Councilor Schultz said there about confidence in the folks we have working on this. Although my question related to the Recreation Reserve is regarding the change and other recreation-related purposes as approved by City Council. And I'm not sure if it's a question or just a curiosity how adding that phrase may potentially take away from the original intention of CIP, the capital improvement project for which it was designed. So.
Would Mr. Conforti like to speak to that? Or Mr. LeBrun?
I could speak to it. So, all right, members of the council, Councilor Caleb, the Recreation Reserve resolution that you have, the original one, that was adopted pursuant to the statute that is not necessarily for capital reserve funds, but for non-capital reserve funds that allows a broader use. So as I understand it, the original resolution was related to the community center, but there was some language both in the resolution and in the report that was presented to council that said it was going to be used for debt service, also for expenses, and then there was some indication that there may be other expenses that the council may choose to use for that. So when we looked at the history of this, there was a lack of clarity in terms of whether it was tethered completely to the community development center or used for other purposes, because there was some language both in the ordinance and the report that came with it that really wasn't clear what the council's intent was. And we understand that the council has then acted with a broader use than it had necessarily in just the community development fund. That's why I wanted to bring this forward, provide clarity of saying, okay, we're going to make it clear in the actual language of the resolution that this has some broader intent to clean up that language that was in these different reports and resolution when it came forward originally.
Thank you, Mr. Conforti. Councilor Horn.
I would like to make a motion to amend the proposed resolution.
Okay.
I would like to move forward with closing the reserve account suggested and transferring their funds as suggested, which was 5836, 5906, 6824, 6901 downtown economic development, 8628 and the SVMS. Also supporting a change to the resolution 6901 to better add the definition to support the replacement of the fire apparatus as approved by City Council. But I would then propose to not make any further changes to the verbiage to the 14 reserve that would add variables of and other X related purposes as approved by City Council.
Councilor, do you have that in writing? Could you provide it to the city clerk in writing?
Yep.
Like, do you have it now in writing?
Yes.
Okay. Could you provide it to the clerk, because it's very detailed in.
Yep. And that's the end of my amendment, sorry.
Okay. There's a second? All right. Moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Councilor Kretovic.
Thank you. Would this also mean that we're not going to transfer $250,000 into some of these reserves that you are mentioning here of these 14? Because otherwise they'll be locked in place to be used for the sole purpose of and not for the broader use of recreational activities. I'm just using that one as an example because it's the one off the top of my head.
No, I was just, oh, sorry.
That's right. You can respond.
I was just addressing this specific resolution.
Councilor Kurtz.
Thank you. May I ask Councilor Hart
Sure,
a
if
question
she's
about
willing
the
to
amendment?
answer.
Are you?
I just wanted to, could I speak to my?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, sure.
I
Go
apologize,
ahead and
Councilor.
speak to your motion. I apologize. I should have recognized you for that.
I did a lot of research on reserve funds, their purpose and their definition. I primarily relied on the New Hampshire Municipal Association, which provides a lot of information derived from the state statutes and guidance from the Department of Revenue Administration. The purpose as outlined by these entities clearly state that voters should always know what these funds will be used for. If a resident asks, what is the reserve fund for? I don't think us saying whatever a future council decides is a good answer. This creates confusion, uncertainty, skepticism, especially at a time when public trust in government spending is always fragile. The NHMA and DRA also note that the purpose cannot be too ambiguous. I'll quote from their presentation. Vague purposes present potential conflict regarding proper expenditures, end quote. The phrase "and other related purposes as approved by City Council" is simply too vague. Reserve funds exist for specific, clearly articulated reasons: stability, emergencies, long-term planning, or defined capital needs as defined by the state statutes. When we dilute that clarity, we undermine the very purpose of having reserve funds in the first place.
Thank you. Councilor Kurtz.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Councilor Horn. I also looked at the NHMA's presentation, and also right now I'm looking at RSA 34.1. And the item 1 under that says a specific capital improvement, but item 2 says or type of capital improvement. That language in the RSA combined with the example in the NHMA presentation, which gives just capital improvements as their vague example, to me is a far cry from, I think you named 14 specific types of improvements within the city. And I think given the scale with which we operate, it is reasonable for us to set aside funds for types of improvement such as economic development, community development, recreation. So I think that this is a question of interpretation of the RSA, what qualifies as a type. And in this case, I disagree that it undermines public trust. I think that, in fact, tonight's item before us is intended to clarify that these funds are, in fact, set aside for purposes related to recreation, and the language changes in the other 13 capital reserve funds are intended to do the same, to create greater clarity for the public, and then leave it at the discretion of the council, which is elected.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Fennessy.
Thank you. I will not be supporting the amendment, but I do appreciate Councilor Horn digging into these statutes, which in my daytime job I spend a fair amount of time with. I do think, as revised, what's being proposed makes a lot of sense. I think much of that NHMA material is geared towards town meeting and making sure when voters show up that they understand what the purpose is of a trust fund that's being created. I think that we operate in a slightly different fashion because at the end of the day, it's us sitting around the council table who have the opportunity to change a trust fund anytime we want, provided we get enough votes. So I think what's really important is to make sure that we all sitting around the table understand the particular buckets for which we're putting money away and make sure that the purpose associated with it makes sense. While I understand some people want to narrow the purpose as much as possible, I do think we want to make it sufficiently broad so we understand what category of appropriation the money should go towards, but not unreasonably limit it to such a purpose that, effectively we can't use the money again until we get 3/4 of us to vote for a new purpose. So that's where I stand.
Thank you. Councilor Brown.
Yes, I'd just like to point out that there is an RSA for towns, and it's RSA 35. RSA 34 deals specifically with cities, and we received public testimony that talked about these funds are for a specific purpose. That's the creation of them. This is making them more generic, not specific. And, we have a fund, fire apparatus replacement. We did not put money into that. We could have put hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we've put $3.5 million into the recreation reserve. We bonded a fire truck instead of using the fire apparatus replacement, and because we bonded that truck, we are paying $400,000 in interest. So I think that we are not being as smart about these funds, because we should, as the governing body, be examining what our future needs are and how we should be saving for them. I was listening during budget when the city manager said, yes, you can use it for everything. Yes, you can. You can do it. You can do what you want. Then I took a financial policies class, and then I talked to other municipalities, talked to the auditors, and they said it must be for a specific purpose. So it was learning that my role as a representative, that, and all of us at the table, 41:9, we have the responsibility of internal controls for the assets and the properties of the public, and this is part of it. So I think before we put more money into these, although I support this amendment, I do not think we should generalize any of these terms, but I think we really need to look at what are we saving for? Why are we putting $250,000 into a recreation reserve when we know that the fire station is going to have more needs? When we know that there are other issues happening in the city? I think we need to look forward to what's happening before we dedicate $100,000 for economic development when it's clearly for an office park, industrial park, and civic center. So I will be supporting this amendment.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other discussion? Councilor Schlosser.
So I don't think I can support this amendment. I think it all depends on what you mean by specific. I mean, recreation is different than highway, okay? So, but if it's specified as a recreation as a type, then it's specified, it's specific. I don't think saying specific means you have to know, well, which piece of equipment, which building, or something like that, but it's the category of community improvement or recreation reserve or highway reserve, and those are the specific purposes. And it says, for example, the highway transfer to, it is recommended to add, and other highway-related purposes as approved by City Council. So I think that's saying to the public, this reserve is used for highway purposes. That's the type of expenditure that this reserve is. So I think this is cleaning it up. So I think I have confidence that this is really maybe overdue, but we're sort of cleaning up some of our housekeeping, our language, so that it's clarified, and we have the responsibility to oversee it. So in this instance, I think I cannot support this amendment.
Councilor Trapp.
Thank you, Your Honor. I appreciate Councilor Schlosser's comments, and I agree with them. And I would add that I think folks need to remember that the reason that we have reserve accounts is to make it easier on folks to pay their taxes. I mean, there's no nefarious reason that we're creating these accounts, or we're trying to hide money, or we're trying to be not transparent. It's actually the opposite. We're trying to be more transparent by having separate accounts. That's why we have enterprise funds. That's why we have separate funds, parking, for example, and golf and so forth. It's to make it easier for the folks to see where the dollars are being spent, where the money is going. And ultimately, the reason for the reserve funds is, in fact, to make it easier so we don't hit taxpayers with large tax rate increases annually, and that we can soften that blow by using some of these reserve fund dollars. It's no different than utilizing grant fund dollars when we apply for and receive grants. So I also appreciate Councilor Horn's digging into this and spending time with this, but I also can't support it for those reasons. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Councilor Caleb.
Oh, thank you. Can we hear the amendment again, please?
You provide it to the city clerk, please.
I emailed, did you get it?
You have it in writing, right?
Yeah.
Did you provide it to the city clerk so she can read it?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I had it here, I emailed it, I'm sorry, no, I don't have it printed.
She emailed it to the city clerk.
She emailed it to the city clerk? All right. Well, could you provide her with your device so she can read it?
Yeah.
Thank you. Just as a matter of course, if people want to come in with extremely detailed amendments, we need to have that in writing, like hard copy.
Paper.
Yes. Paper. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Councilor. Do you have it?
Is it all these paragraphs?
Oh. No.
We spoke like 3 hours about this today. Trying to get it out. And I said to her, right.
All right. So Councilor Horn's motion is to amend the proposed resolution and move forward with closing reserve account suggested and transfer their funds as suggested. She has in parentheses 5836, 5906, 6824, 6901, which is downtown economic development, 8628, and SVMS.
Soil vapor management system.
Thank you. She would also suggest change to Resolution 6901 to better add the definition of to support the replacement of fire apparatus as approved by City Council. And then she proposes to not make any further changes to the verbiage to the 11 reserves that would add variables of and other X related purposes as approved by City Council. It includes 5906 Sturgeon Block, 6570, 6572, 6859, 8427, 8517, 8575, 8576, 8935, 9537, 9605, 9650, 9627, and 9608.
Thank you. Councilor Caleb?
Thank you. In thinking about this, maybe I'm not sure, maybe I'm focusing too much on the, the original intent, and I'm just going back to the Recreation Reserve because when looking into this, the context tells me that this was kind of a contentious topic recently, and forgive me, this is my first day. This might be a kind of a silly question.
You're doing fine.
But if the original intent of this particular one was for the Heights Community Center, and it was used for a number of other projects, and then we're adding the language that makes it a little bit more vague, why not open a separate reserve account for those, others as necessary, and leave this one as a community center reserve fund? That, and again, I say this is my first day, the first thing that comes to mind is maybe there are situations in here where things should be separated. I'm not sure. But I appreciate Councilor Horn looking into this and with such detail. I do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. And just for clarification, the place where we're at right now is considering, discussing, and voting upon specifically Councilor Horn's amendment, proposed amendment. Councilor Keach.
For the record, I just object to what was just introduced to the record, the electronic amendment, or I'm sorry, electronic testimony that may or may not have been from Councilor Horn. I don't think that's appropriate.
Well, Councilor, let me say, again, for clarification, according to City Council rules, the mayor may require a written amendment. I'm not requiring the written amendment. In other words, the way I interpret that is a written hard copy to be able to present it to the clerk. I'm allowing it now because it hasn't come up before, and obviously Councilor Horn put a lot of work into it. I understand your point. Just know that going forward, the mayor can very easily say, I'm sorry, you don't have a written copy of your amendment. We're not going to consider it. But we are going to do it in this case because it has not come up while I've been sitting in this seat. Any further discussion? Councilor Kretovic.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Conforti, where does precedent come into play? Because certainly this is not the first time that we have used money out of the reserve and then replenished money in the reserve for different reserves, not just this one. Isn't there a precedent, or is there a precedent that says we've done this in the past, we're cleaning this up, and that's the message that is for the council? Is that correct? Please.
Approach. I feel like a judge approaching.
Don't move until I'm told to. So Councilor Kretovic, I wouldn't say that precedent is really the issue here. I think the important thing to remember is that this is the council's resolutions, right? So we've given you a series of resolutions that the council has adopted over the years. over decades, the verbiage that was used to create those resolutions has changed as staff changed, I think, and used different templates. So that created some lack of clarity in terms of, all right, we want to make sure that we're expressing the council's intent right now. So what's before you is an attempt, again, to express the council's intent. Do you want to, again, give yourself some more leeway with regard to the language? Do you want to stay with more restrictive language? Do you want to create a different reserve fund? You certainly can do any of those things. So ultimately, it is up to the council to review their resolutions and decide, do these still reflect what we want to, how we want to use these reserves going forward?
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kurtz?
Thank you. May I speak to Councilor Caleb's suggestion or inquiry about keeping this, a specific Heights Community Center reserve, and then
Sure.
Okay, thanks. My thought on that is that when I look at the other reserves that we have in this resolution, they are largely types: highway, wastewater, water. And while previously, right, in 2016, that council did create a reserve, which they created language to make it specific for a Heights Community Center. To me, what we're proposing to do tonight is, take the voice of the council, brings the recreation reserve language in alignment with the other types of capital reserves that we have. And I just think it would be cumbersome and unnecessary to create a separate reserve. To me, they're all of a type: a bridge reserve, sidewalk reserve, recreation. And then the council has at its discretion the opportunity to allocate funds to any of the number of recreation facilities we have around the city that we maintain, in a cycle, parks, et cetera.
Councilor Brown, and then Councilor.
Yes, I'd just like to, just two things quick. The budget detail is not available publicly, and it just is a line item that says 200,000 recreation reserve, doesn't say what it's for. So I'd like to see that made public going forward, but I really want to thank Councilor Caleb. I really appreciate your creative thinking, and I think that what you're considering, and I hope you do because I would second it, is an amendment to an amendment of Councilor Horn's, that we create a recreation reserve for Memorial Field, because that is a project that we are looking at that is going forward, and that I would be absolutely open to this 250,000 going into a capital reserve account for Memorial Field, because we know that's $31 million, and we have so many projects ahead of us. And I'm looking at RSA 34:1, and it's the, let's see, Roman numeral 6, which is for, Roman numeral 2, which is construction, reconstruction of a type of capital improvement. So I think that would align, and I hope you consider, because I think that is a great creative solution.
Councilor, let me just say, I'm not going to consider an amendment to a proposed amendment. If Councilor Caleb wanted to come after we vote on Councilor Horn's amendment and make an amendment, certainly, but we're not going to have amendments on amendments on amendments on amendments to confuse the matter. We have one amendment before us.
Parliamentary procedure, point of parliamentary procedure. Your Honor, that is in order to have an amendment to an amendment.
That's my ruling, Councilor. And I rule on this. I rule at this table. Councilor Grady Sexton.
I'm fine, thank you.
You're fine? Okay. Councilor Sekou.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to understand, because it seems like this is a little confusing. And Michelle, Councilor Horn, please help me here. Your amendment here is really as presented. Everything you are okay with it, except the language out of the 11 reserves. Previous language, you want those language to be kept. Is that correct?
Yes, go ahead.
I mistyped that. It was 14, but yes, keeping their current language as they are, all of them that we would be keeping open.
So, follow up. Thank you, Your Honor. So everything that the city administration recommended, you support except that you feel the language that we are adding is not clear enough because it's giving us too much flexibility. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments before we vote?
Roll call.
Mr. City Manager, do you want to?
Yeah, sure. I was just watching all the students leave there.
All right.
So two things. One is just to add, if you've looked through all the original language on the reserve accounts, just using one example is if you're looking for highways, and it says the city's included in capital improvement funds for its improvements to highways and roads. So somebody brought up earlier, so I guess that means no sidewalks, no drainage, no traffic signals, right? But you constantly, every single year, you take money out of the highway reserve to do those types of things. So what you're saying now is all those times you did that, you should not have been doing that. Why would you want to limit yourself on those things when everybody knows when you put those dollars in, you're looking at the capital projects that are in the budget generally, and you're saying, let's put some money in there because we're going to need these things. So take some credit for yourself. You've been doing it right. You haven't been doing it wrong. And also, if you think about you're actually making it vaguer. The way you're making it vaguer is if you don't put the money into the reserves, because you wouldn't be putting the money into the reserves now because you couldn't spend them the way that you wanted to spend them, it's going to just simply go to fund balance. So you're just going to create this enormous fund balance, and you're not going to be able to tell the public why you have this fund balance. Well, some of you could say, well, we're going to use it on roads, and some can say we're going to use it on replastering the pool at Rollins Park, and some people are going to say we're going to fix the paths at Keach Park. Some are going to say we're going to use it on Canal Street, but if you have it in the reserves and you have those capital projects, you can actually tie it down. So I'm suggesting that you actually limit how the money gets used by putting in the reserves. You're communicating to the community, recreation's important, economic development's important. If you just let it go to fund balance, which is what you'll be doing, because there'd be no reason anymore to put funds in something in these reserves that don't have a purpose that you wouldn't want to use it for, you're just communicating to the community that you don't have a plan. So you remember, I came in October, gave you the entire capital improvement program and said, give me some feedback of anything you want to change. You didn't want to change anything, so we left it. So when we look at these reserves, we say, okay, this is the capital budget that the city has. Could be Memorial Field, it could be anything else. And when we actually allocate these dollars, for example, the highway improvement program, I would really like to do repaving up on the heights. So I've put a tremendous amount of money more in the capital budget or in the reserve for the capital budget to do some major roads that need to get done on the heights. Sidewalks on Pembroke Road. I mean, there's all kinds of projects like that. If you don't want to do that and just let the money go to fund balance and then just deal with it at that time, that just actually gives more flexibility for us to be able to do that. But why not communicate to the community, this is what our priorities are?
Okay.
And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'll leave it at that.
All right, are we ready for the vote?
Excuse me,
Okay,
Your Honor,
roll call.
may I ask him a question, the city manager a question based on his statements?
Do you want to entertain a question? Go ahead.
I'm just confused why we wouldn't use the unassigned fund balance for something that was, that I think is, and that's something that we would vote on. So it wouldn't have to come from a recreation reserve, a vague, broad recreation reserve, if there is something that comes up, because we have done it. I think we did it at the last meeting, that we will take from the unassigned fund balance, and that's what it's there for.
Right, and that makes it vaguer to the, Mayor?
Yes.
That makes it vaguer to the community. You're not saying that you're putting away money for the recreation reserve. You're just saying you're putting it in a fund balance with no purpose. So we agree.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Agree.
all right.
No, we don't.
All right, are we ready for the question?
This is the amendment.
For the
This is
question
on the
or-
amendment. This is on the amendment presented by Councilor Horn. Do we all know what the question is?
Yes.
And I've had a roll call vote requested, so it will be a roll call vote. This is on Councilor Horn's amendment to the original measure, to the original motion to adopt this item as presented. So we're voting on Councilor Horn's amendment. All right? Madam City Clerk?
Counselor Brown?
Yes.
Mayor Champlin?
No.
Counselor Davy?
Nay.
Counselor Fennessy?
No.
Counselor Foote is not here, my apologies. Counselor Grady Sexton?
No.
Counselor Horn?
Yes.
Counselor Caleb?
No.
No?
No.
Thank you. Counselor Keach?
No.
Counselor Kretovic?
No.
Counselor Kurtz?
No.
Counselor Schlosser?
No.
Counselor Schultz?
No.
Counselor Sekou?
No.
And Counselor Todd?
No.
The motion fails.
The motion fails. We now have the original motion before us. Counselor Sekou.
So I voted no for two reasons, and I want to talk about flexibility because I think oftentimes when we say give the city council flexibility and our authority as well, any funds that we move from any reserve money that moved still comes to this council. So even if we are vague or too broad, we can still make the decision. The decision is not saying that, and that's what the language said in this motion that we have on. Councilor Brown, I see you.
Counselor, go ahead and speak.
So for me, I think when the authority is still on the table of the council to make the decision, of course, a definition is always good because clarity is what we are looking to do. But based on what the city manager just talked about or stated, every money that we have in a reserve fund, either we make a broader definition or not, we are going to be having that same opportunity to vote on it when the time comes.
Counselor, you all set, Counselor? Counselor
Yeah,
Fennessy.
thank you.
Thank you. I would like to first thank Councilor Brown for bringing up this issue, in part because I think it was a great opportunity for city staff to go back and take a look. I mean, many of these reserve accounts have been there for many, many years. And I think they did a lot of great homework in sort of going through and highlighting where there's some ambiguities from our prior councils. Not that I'm going to blame them, but perhaps some ambiguities in how they viewed what those funds were being put aside for. I'm particularly happy that we're closing a bunch of these accounts, which clearly have long since served their purpose. So thank you to the deputy city manager, to the city solicitor, the city manager for going through this exercise. And I do think it's been sort of helpful for us to go back and look and see, you know, we know about the existence of these funds and sort of a general idea about what they are there for, but really going back and sort of understanding what the purpose is and making sure going forward that the purpose is what we want it to be. Because I agree with what the city manager said. We could just put everything in unassigned fund balance. You know, that would be great, right? It would create essentially a savings account we could use for any purpose. But the minute you did that, you would have everybody saying, why are you putting all this money in this big account with no purpose for which you're going to use it? At least by using these reserve accounts, we're signaling, here's where we want to spend our money. Here's where we think our biggest expenditures are coming down the road. And this is why we're holding on to that money, which otherwise we could return back to the citizens. I mean, it's their tax dollars, right? So I guess I'll conclude with thank you for bringing it up. Thank you for everybody taking a deeper dive at this.
Thank you, Counselor Caleb.
Yeah, thank you. So I voted no. I think the level of specificity I may be looking for is just somewhere in the middle. And based on, you know, what Mr. Conforti said earlier, it is an interesting, I guess the council does have opportunities, and that one of these opportunities presented to us is, you know, to take a look at these reserve funds, to close some of them, to make them potentially more specific or more vague. And I think I just struggle kind of in the moment where everything moves very quickly and wondering, a question I guess I'm wondering is there a timeline attached to approval of this? Is it, I guess I'm asking, is it urgent to approve this? It's just a curiosity.
there's not an urgency of getting it done today. I think the importance is clarifying each one of those reserve funds to provide the city council with the flexibility to manage the city operations the way that they deem is appropriate, the most appropriate. I think as we get into the next budget process, there's been some items that were brought up that said you can't use it for this, you can't use it for that, we're doing this wrong, we're doing that wrong. This clarifies those confusions. When the city manager presents the budget in May, if he hasn't been able to properly utilize those funds because now somebody's claiming that, we can't use it for that purpose, that presents a problem for him. If you look at just the paving program, $2.9 million between the money that was used in the Highway Reserve Fund. If you just divide that by $546,000, which is 1% on the tax rate, you're looking at 5.5% to 6% on the tax rate in order to support that. It makes sense to be able to use those funds. The city council sets those funds aside so that you can manage the budget and streamline things a little bit more, to manage the tax rate increases, to manage the capital increases. The city council can decide whatever you want to use those funds for. If you want us to, develop many more capital reserve accounts, we can do that for those purposes that you want. That can be done as time goes on. But I think, if you take too long in order to approve this, it puts the city manager in a jam as he's starting to prepare the budget for fiscal year 2027, which is coming right up upon us. And I think that this helps to clarify all those things, and it puts those issues to rest.
Mr. LeBrun, when does the city manager generally start working with staff to put together the budget before he presents it to us in May?
Mr. Mayor, when the city council adopted the budget on June 5th last year, and I had a meeting with him on June 6th, and he started to talk about fiscal year 27 already. So he doesn't give me a break whatsoever.
Yes, you may.
If I could, I'll give you an example. Tim Thompson just talked to me today about the closeouts of all the different projects that we're doing. I want to have the capital budget pretty much done in the next couple of weeks. Because from out of that capital budget, I'll know what our operating costs are going to be associated with that. Council, I can work with you if you want to, because I've been thinking along the same line. We're probably going to need a reserve account for the Merrimack River Greenway Trail. I mean, you're talking about a $13 million project that's going to run through the entire city, and which is constantly going to need to be going to need staffing. It's going to need equipment. It's going to need all kinds of improvements. Why not create something for that? And there could be other ones that make sense in this state. And if you want to specifically put dollars there, then maybe people are going to make donations and you can put money into the reserves. I'll be glad to work with you on that.
Thank you. I really appreciate the clarification, and thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to echo what Councilor Fennessy said. I do think we need to thank Councilor Brown for the questions that she raised to a point. I think that my urgency is there was a suggestion of fiscal impropriety, of malfeasance at one point in social media elsewhere, and I think maybe even at one of our previous meetings. I feel an urgency, knowing this isn't the case, to clear the record, to let this happen now. And, I hope I'm one of those folks that likes to question things and examine them and welcome that from the public. But in this case, when it tiptoes towards the belief or almost an assumption of malfeasance, I do not believe that's the case. So I feel an urgency to want to clear that out of our minds and say we are addressing this right now. So I hope that's helpful. I love that you're bringing good questions, but I feel a sense of urgency.
Thank you, Councilor. Are we ready for the vote?
Your Honor, may I speak? There have been 3 councilors who've referenced me. May I?
Sure. Go ahead.
I appreciate that, and I feel the same way. But I do feel that we can trust but verify. If the trustees have not been receiving training, then we should ensure that they receive that training. And I would also like councilors to reflect on our budget process. June 5th, we had our workshop, and we worked very hard. And if you look at that workshop, and we went through, this was the page from the mayor, and I remember we spent, an hour shaving just a small bit. But what I noticed about this was that we only approved $205,000 from the Community Improvement Reserve, but $449,000 was withdrawn. So I watched that whole meeting. I watched that finance meeting on June 5th, and we went from finance, we approved this, and then we went right into the budget. And in the budget, those minutes say $449,000. We did not discuss that. We did not say, yes, we spent a long time. We know that $205,000, and it does meet the requirements for the Capital Reserve Fund, was to clean up Healy Park, because we discussed that. My concern is that we did not discuss $100,000 coming from the Recreation Reserve, and we did not discuss $244 additional coming from the community improvement.
Mr. LeBrun, would you like to respond to that?
If you look at the minutes of the meeting from June 5th, it identifies the 205 and the 244,000, and it also identifies another 150,000 from Economic Development Reserve. It's all in the minutes, and the minutes reflect the budget that was adopted by the City Council and included every dollar. Do not try to say that the dollars that were transferred out were not approved by the City Council. Every dollar was approved. I want to make that completely clear. Every dollar was approved.
Thank you, Mr. LeBrun. Are we ready for the question?
Your Honor, I want to say that was incorrect.
Counselor, out of order. Out of order.
Point of order, that was an incorrect statement.
Out of order.
Because
Out of order.
this is a point of order. You can claim a point of order if there is misinformation being given, and that is misinformation. You can look at the minutes from our finance meeting. The $244,000 was not approved by council.
Counselor, that's so erroneous. You know, honestly, I'm trying to be polite here.
Your Honor, back to your, let's move on to the vote.
All right. Move the question. That we have to now vote on to move the question. All those in favor of moving the question signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no?
No.
Ayes have it by the required 2/3 majority. Now, we'll put the vote to the question. Now, we'll be voting on the original motion, which is to approve item 31. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no?
No.
The motion passes by the required 3/4 majority. Madam City Clerk, item 32.
It is a resolution appropriating the sum of $2,050,000 as a transfer to reserves and authorizing the use of $2,050,000 from fiscal year 2025 general fund assigned fund balance for this purpose.
Move approval.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no?
No.
Ayes have it. Motion is adopted. Madam City Clerk, item 33.
It is a resolution appropriating the sum of $46,000 in the general fund for furniture and fixtures, overtime, education, and training, and authorizing the use of $46,000 in reserve funds for this purpose.
Move approval.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no?
No.
Ayes have it by the required 2/3 majority, which is also the case for item 32. Thank you. This takes us to consideration of items pulled from the consent agenda. Madam City Clerk, item 20.
Yes, it was pulled from the consent agenda by Councilor Brown. Sure. It's a resolution establishing committee guidelines and term limits for the Committee for Concord's Plan to End Homelessness.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
I would like to ask questions.
Do we have a motion?
The motion is to, I'm adding an amendment to this report.
We don't have a motion on the floor.
I'll move.
Motion to approve?
Second. Okay.
Approve and discuss.
There is no motion to discuss. We need a motion to approve.
Make a
and
motion to
seconded.
do
Thank
it, and then we second, and then we
Okay.
discuss.
Right,
Yes.
all right. Councilor Brown, would you speak to the
So
motion?
I think this is an excellent, this report I think is great, that we should have term limits. And I do especially like on page 2, where they talk about a member who misses 3 consecutive meetings without notice is subject to removal. As we know, that I have been removed from the committees that I was on, and I'd like to note or point out that I would like this rule to apply to counselors. We have a counselor who is on the Fiscal Policy Advisory Committee, and the Public Safety Board, who does not attend those meetings. There were 14 public safety meetings. He attended 1. So I believe that if a counselor does not attend meetings, they should not be on that committee. And a counselor who has a clear conflict of interest should not be the chair of a committee. If the chair of a committee does not hold a meeting like the Public Safety Committee, which did not meet at all in 2023, there were months, there was a gap of 8 months between the Public Safety Board meeting, 12 months, 15 months. The Public Safety Board, there's so many public dollars, taxpayer dollars, that go towards that. I don't expect to be on that committee. I don't expect to chair because I have a conflict of interest. So I truly question why the chair of the Public Safety Committee is there and is not holding regular meetings. I think that should be corrected.
May I respond?
You may.
Thank you, Your Honor. First of all, the document that you circulated with attendance was incorrect. You published it online, you circulated it to the clerk. It was absolutely incorrect, it was not factual, and it's not a public document. Second of all, if you believe that I have a conflict, then you should state what that is right here, right now, not online, while making all sorts of, allegations, accusations of criminal wrongdoing by staff and by your fellow counselors. Instead of saying it online, you should say it right now.
Go ahead. Okay, I believe that Councillor Grady Sexton has a conflict of interest. She is the lobbyist for the New Hampshire Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence, which trains police officers and law enforcement and receives funds for settlements with the coalition. So the person who trains law enforcement officers in pre-trial publicity should not be the chair overseeing the police officer budget. That is it. And I believe that there is an ethics complaint that was filed with the clerk today on that point.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. Point of order.
Yeah, Councilor, as far as I know, the Safety Committee doesn't oversee the police department budget. Councilor, yes.
I'm empathetic to having this conversation. I too felt maligned by that report that went around. It isn't official. I don't think this has anything to do with the Commission to End Homelessness.
Would you like to move the question?
Yes, please.
I would like to respond, Your Honor. May I respond? I think that I've been impugned. I would like to have a response to that.
Respect.
Thank you. I do not train the Concord Police Department. My organization has never trained the Concord Police Department in terms of any recent history that any staff person has in my organization. My organization does train police officers, and when they do so, there is no monetary value attached to that in any way. So again, I do not train Concord Police Department officers. I never have. I am the chair of an advisory board that makes advisory opinions to this body that makes the ultimate decision. I have no authority over any budget, and there is no perception of a ethical or a conflict of interest in any way, and there's certainly no financial benefit to my organization or to myself in terms of our relationship with the Concord Police Department. And I would appreciate it if you would stop making allegations as such on social media or here.
The question has been moved. All right. All those in favor of moving the question, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it by the required three-quarters majority. Now, we're up. We're now voting on the original. Let's vote on the original motion. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. I'll declare a 5-minute recess.
Thank you.
There is an
authorized.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? All right, I'll entertain a motion to refer the communication on the suspense calendar, suspense 1, communication from the Attorney General's office regarding review of city contracts for DEI-related provisions, to refer that communication to the GEIJB Committee and the Legal Department.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
All right, the motion passes. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
We are adjourned.